1977, which is the same astrological day as today. So this was the anniversary of his departure. It's called Disappearance. When we talk about the great spiritual teachers or the incarnations of the Lord, we don't say death. We don't say, you know, Krishna died, or Rama Chandra died, or Prabhupada died, or the Guru died, or anything like that. We say disappeared. Disappeared. It's a disappearance day. It's like this, the sun sets on the west every evening. It doesn't die. It's just, it still continues after we stop seeing it, but it's just disappeared from our view. It's still there. It's still existing, but it's not in our view anymore. So the soul always exists, as we know from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The soul is eternal. It's ever existing. It never dies. Even when the body dies, the soul doesn't die. So it's just the personality has left our association, left our vision, our view. So they've disappeared. So in one sense, the appearance and disappearance of a great personality, there's not any real difference there. It's like the sun rises in the morning, comes into our view, and leaves our view in the evening. So these great personalities like the Lord or his great devotees, they come into our view in this world and they leave our view, but they're always there. So we're thinking a lot of people will be thinking about Swami Prabhupada today, and gratitude for all that he's given us. And it's said that there's one beautiful poem that was written by one of the great teachers named Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he wrote a poem, and part of that poem says that he reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die, while thou art still living in sound. Vaishnavas die to live, and while living, spread the holy name around. So that's a beautiful poem with a deep meaning. And so that's bad reasoning, saying that a great spiritual personality, they die. Their death is not like an ordinary death. They, from leaving this body, they enter back into spiritual existence. And remember, that's our goal. That's the goal of human life, is that when we die, when the body dies, that the soul can enter back into our original home in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha. The Sanskrit word for our original spiritual home in the spiritual world is called Vaikuntha. Vai means without, and Kunta means anxieties. So there's a place without any anxieties, and that's the spiritual world. And the main anxieties, as we know, is birth and old age and disease and death. So none of these anxieties or miseries of the material world exist in the spiritual world. Everyone lives there eternally with full knowledge and full bliss. It's called Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal, and Chit means full knowledge, and Ananda means bliss. So everyone lives there in that environment. So this material world is the opposite. It's called Kunta. Kunta means full of anxieties, whereas the spiritual world is Vaikuntha. So that's where the great personalities go after leaving this material world. They go to the Vaikuntha. And if we also follow in their footsteps on the spiritual path, we can also make this our last birth in the material world and the last death, and go straight to Vaikuntha. So that's the real goal of human life. And this is the best thing we're doing by hearing this knowledge, this philosophy, is helping us to make steps towards this goal. So let's continue on from the 5th chapter, Bhagavad Gita.
So can you tell me what page we're on with it?
Yes. So I can't tell you the page because my books are probably a bit different. Yeah, we're on the 5th.
One day we should have a lesson purely devoted to checking chapter numbers and verse numbers as opposed to page numbers.
Yes. Yeah, so look in the top, right in the top, in the corner, when you open the pages in the top corner, and you'll see, you'll see the chapter and the text number in the top corner.
So what text am I, what number am I after?
Yeah, number 5.
Just 5?
Yes. Chapter 5, text 5. Chapter 5, text 5.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, chapter 5, text 5. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm on. Okay.
Okay, so I'll recite it one line at a time, and then you repeat after me this time. So you repeat it after me. Yat sankhya prapyate stanam. Okay.
Yat sankhya prapyate stayanam.
Yeah. Tad yoga apigamyate.
Tad yoga apigamyate.
Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha.
Ekam sankhayam cha yogam cha.
Ya pasyati sapashyati.
Ya pasyati sa pasyati.
Okay. So I'll read the translation. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are.
Wow, beautiful.
So analytical study.
Very challenging for the materialist, for the intellect, I love this kind of thing.
Yeah. So this analytical study in the word for word, it's got Sankhya by means of Sankhya philosophy. So this is the process of analyzing the material world using our God-given brain and intellect to analyze the material world. That's called the Sankhya process, Sankhya yoga, and also pretty much related to the Jnana yoga. So Jnana yoga, Sankhya yoga is sort of quite interchangeable.
Yeah.
Because Gyan means knowledge and Sankhya means analyzing, which is also knowledge. And but basically what distinguishes it from Bhakti Yoga is that you're trying to understand the Supreme from your own intellect. Because analyzing means, what's analyzing? That means your intelligence, with your mind and intelligence, you're analyzing. So you're trying to progress from your own efforts of analytical power. Of course, if you're not very good at analyzing, if you're not very intellectual, that pretty much cuts you out of this process. So, I mean, it's not really a process that everyone can do, but some people get really into that. They're really into researching and studying and analyzing and debating and arguing and philosophizing. You have the Philosophical Society, isn't it? There's a society called the Philosophical Society. So that's they're sort of following that Sankhya Yoga system of analyzing the world and coming up with their theories and philosophies about what the real purpose of life is and what the meaning of it all is. And so there's people that really get into that. But yeah, it's limited range of people, because not everyone is super intellectual. But definitely there are a class of people that they really have a great interest in this kind of procedure. Whereas Bhakti Yoga is definitely still using the intellect, because another name of Bhakti Yoga is Buddhi Yoga. So Buddhi means intelligence. So definitely intelligence is required also in Buddhi Yoga. But the difference is that we are hearing from authority. We're hearing from the authority, which is ultimately the Lord coming down through the parampara, the disciplic succession, coming in the Vedas. We're hearing from the Vedas and disciplic succession, the great spiritual teachers presenting the Vedas. So we're trying to hear submissively from these great authorities, and we're using our intelligence to process what we're hearing. And if we have questions, if we don't understand something, if we have some doubts, then we should ask. If we have any doubts, we should submissively, not in a challenging way with the authority, but in a submissive way, with a genuine interest, to want to find out the truth. We should question and use our intelligence to understand, does this make sense? Is this logical? I remember that's one of the things that attracted me to Bhakti Yoga, to Krishna consciousness, is that whatever the spiritual teachers were saying made so much sense. It made so much sense. It seemed very logical, very reasonable, what I was hearing. And then when I applied what I heard in my life, then I found out it works. So that increased my faith even more in the process. Whereas for the person following the Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga system, they're not really ready to submit themselves to hearing from Krishna, hearing from some different authorities, but rather they place more faith in their own mind and intelligence. But as it's been saying here, Krishna himself has been saying, ultimately they end up in the same result, whether someone follows this analytical process of, and Prabhupada explains in the last purport, it's like this Sankhya Yoga philosophy is like finding the root. They're trying to search out what is the supreme, what is the ultimate truth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, he compares it to watering the root. So we're directly serving the Supreme, in this Bhakti Yoga process. But in the ultimate end, they end up in the same place. Because once you find the root of the source of everything, what will you do? Then you'll also water it, isn't it? Once you understand the ultimate truth is the Supreme Person, known by Krishna and other names, then ultimately they'll be doing the same things. But it's just a more longer process. A lot of speculation, a lot of trial and error, searching out like that. Would anyone like to say anything about that?
I'm good.
All good?
Yeah.
Hey, Abe,
Yes.
So when you find the root, you will want to water it. Yeah?
That's right, obviously. Yeah, I mean, you can't water it if you haven't found it. Like, with a plant, right? You want to water the plant, you got to find the root first.
Yeah.
You got to find it first. But ultimately, someone's watering it and someone's still finding it. But, ultimately it's going to end up the same. The person, eventually they'll find it and then they'll start watering it too. So it's going to end up at the same point.
And is there an equivalence to that analogy?
Yeah.
From the viewing through the lens of Jnana Yoga, it's seeing as though they are the same, devotional service and analysis of the same, ultimately.
Yeah,
joined
well, there's
together.
very little difference. I mean, they're sort of interchangeable as far as my understanding goes, and I'm sure I've read that Jnana Yoga and Sankhya Yoga is pretty much the same.
They become the same thing, right?
Yeah, because they're both processes where you're using your own intellect. There's a lot of philosophical speculation, so it's a speculative process, and it means you're using your mind and intelligence, and you're trying to work it out. You're trying to work it out yourself.
Yes,
Whereas Bhakti Yoga is sort of
exactly it.
handed to you. It's handed down to you. So there's two different approaches. One is called Aroha Panta, and the other is called Avaroha Panta. So Aroha Panta is ascending, means upwards process. Panta means like path or process. So Aroha Panta is ascending, means from me going up. I'm trying to go upwards. Whereas Avaroha Panta is a downwards descending process. So the knowledge is coming down from us, from the source, from the Supreme, coming down to us. Like you have the word avatar. Avatar means one who descends. An incarnation, the one who descends. So that's same root word. Avatar, Avaroha. So that's the difference. One's an ascending process from me. I'm trying to work it out, and the other's descending. It's just the knowledge is given to me. All the process is given to me.
Like what I would say, right, is I think that they're both, right? So I love that speculate, right? To speculate is like casting out. It's like a prayer, right? It's like an intellectual prayer. To speculate is like an intellectual like prayer, right? It's a devotion, right? To do that is effortful. And it's like chanting. It's like chanting the name of the Lord. It's an effort that you're putting out there, you know. And just like with bhakti, where there is also a reciprocation, and I think that there is a reciprocation of knowledge as well.
Definitely, because see, when you render service to the Supreme and the Supreme's pleased by your service, then the Supreme enlightens you within your heart, and that's in the 10th chapter, text number 10. 10. So
10, 5, 5 and 10, 10.
Yeah, 10. So now we're on 5, and then if you go to 10, so that's where the Lord gives you the understanding. So he gives you the buddhi. So the buddhi is the intelligence is coming from the Lord. See, we think it's my intelligence, and you know, we think it's my strength, you know, and my everything, you know, but ultimately what we understand in bhakti is that the source of it all coming from the Lord. So he's giving us the intelligence. The intelligence is coming from him. And talking about 5, 5, 10, 10, if you look at 15, 15, how about that? 15, 15, that verse, which is the most quoted verse by Prabhupada, says Krishna's saying that Savasya Chaham Ready Son of Isto, I am situated in everyone's heart, and from me come Smritir Gyanam Apohanam Cha. Smriti means remembrance. You know, oh, where did I put my keys? I can't remember where I put my keys. And then boom, you just remembered. Where did that come from? That thought came in, you left it on the mantelpiece. You know, that comes from the Supreme. That's from the Supreme in our heart. The Paramatma, Super Soul in our heart, gave us some remembrance of something that we'd forgotten. And then Gyanam means knowledge. So knowledge is coming from him, remembrance coming from him. And Apohanam means forgetfulness is also coming from him. So the fact that you forgot where you put your keys, that was under his control, under his influence, and that you remembered where you left them, that's also given by him. So on all sides he's there, you know. So that's a very interesting dimension, because normally we think, you know, it's my knowledge and my memory and, you know, my forgetfulness and everything like that, but it's not really. We're very, very helpless. We're very helpless. Very helpless.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Can I read?
Yeah, this Sankhya Yoga, you could also interplace that with Jnana Yoga, and it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. Sankhya is just indicating analyzing the material world into different departments, into different material elements. Like in Sankhya philosophy, they break down the material world into 25 elements. So earth, water, fire, air, and space, mind, intelligence, ego, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, Gyanendriya, the 5 working senses, Karmendriya, then the 5 sense objects, form, taste, smell.
Lust.
Form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. Yeah, so that's the 24 elements. They break it down, and the 24th is called Mahatattva. Mahatattva means the undifferentiated material energy before it gets divided up. It's like a big soup of material energy, and that's called Mahatattva. So like that, they break down in Sankhya philosophy, they break down the material world, and they understand, I'm not earth, and I'm not water, and I'm not fire, and I'm not the hands, I'm not the legs, I'm not the eyes, I'm not sound, like that. So they did slowly, their idea is to detach themselves from everything in this material world, realizing that they're none of these things, which is true. And it's the same in Bhakti Yoga. Like Prabhupada said, we're not the body, we're the soul. So that's the same thing. We have nothing to do with this material world. So that's the goal of Sankhya philosophy or Jnana Yoga, is to realize that we have nothing to do with this material world and become detached. That's Prabhupada's going to be talking about this idea. He's going to talk about in the purport today about detachment from matter. So that's the idea in Sankhya philosophy and Jnana Yoga, is detachment from matter and realizing that we're not this. They use the words in Sanskrit neti neti. So I'm not this, I'm not that, neti neti. So and Bhakti Yoga philosophy, and that's what Prabhupada's going to talk about, we focus more on attachment to the spiritual, attachment to Krishna. But it's the same thing. If you become detached from the material world, or you become attached to the spiritual world, is there any difference? Because if you let go of this material world, automatically you'll get to the spiritual world. And if you become attached to the spiritual world, automatically you become detached from the material world. So it's pretty much same diff, as they say. Same diff. Okay, so let's get into the purport. Josh disappeared somehow.
I think he wanted to read it. Is he gone, has he?
Yeah, he's disappeared, so maybe he had some connection problem. Anyway, let's see if he reappears so we can give him something to read. But anyway, how about you start the purport, Bob?
The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there is no difference between the conclusion reached by the two processes. By, is it Sankhya? By Sakya philosophical research, one comes to the conclusion that a living entity is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the Supreme Spirit whole. Consequently, the Spirit soul has nothing to do with the material world. His actions must be in some relation with the Supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. In the first process, Sankhya, isn't it?
Sankhya, yes.
Yeah, Sankhya.
Correct.
One has to become detached from matter, and in the devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna consciousness. Factually, both processes are the same, although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this sees things as they are.
Very nice. So Prabhupada's explaining very clearly that the Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga process focuses more on detachment from the material world, from matter. And the Bhakti Yoga focuses more on attachment to the spiritual, attachment to Krishna. But basically it's the same diff. If you become
How good is the Bhagavad Gita? Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes everything very clear. Everything very clear. You can't become attached to one thing unless you let go of something else. It's like I've talked before about, or I've demonstrated. Put one step forward, you got to lift the other step up, right? You can't keep both down on the ground. You know, I'm saying if you want to get somewhere, you have to lift up your back foot in order to put your front foot forward. So it has to be there. You can't separate detachment from the material to attachment to the spiritual. They're both working together. Although the emphasis, like I said, the emphasis for Sankhya Yoga is mainly on detachment from matter. But the more they become detached from matter, naturally, automatically, they're going to open up to the spiritual attachment. And if you focus on becoming more spiritually attached, then automatically you're going to become more detached materially. They have to both go together. They have to both go together. You can't really separate detachment from the material world from attachment to the spiritual world. And it's beautiful in the beginning. What I'd like to say something about, because I find it very important. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there is no difference between the conclusions reached by the two processes. So talking about this goal of life, it's so important because this is a major problem in modern day society, is that people don't know the goal of life. They have a misdirected goal of life, which is sense gratification, which is pleasing our own senses. Most people all around the world today, that's what they've made their goal. They have a goal, but that's, I mean, you could say, you know, they have business goals and relationship goals and health goals and so many things, and they're all different. But in one sense, they're all the same, because usually it's all centered around the body, around our personal sense gratification. And that's the goal in modern day society, is our own bodily gratification, bodily enjoyment. Whereas here it's said, and this is what the philosophers try to work on, is the goal of self-realization, to realize, who am I? And why am I here? And why am I suffering? And how to get free from suffering. So they're not just thinking about the body, but they're trying to realize something beyond the body. So at this point, let's go to the introduction, as I said we would. So when we start in the beginning, we go to the introduction. So just before the introduction is the preface. The preface, just a few pages of preface. So we'll go to the last paragraph of the preface. So just before we go Om Jnana Timirandasya, there's a preface. Josh, have you got the Bhagavad Gita there with you?
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay, that's all right.
I did, but now I'm driving.
Oh, you're driving now. Okay, no worries. No worries. You can just hear anyway. It's no problem. So I'll read. This is the last paragraph here in the preface. People in general, especially in this age of Kali, are enamored by the external energy of Krishna, which we call Maya, and they wrongly think that by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. They have no knowledge that the material or external nature is very strong, for everyone is strongly bound by the stringent laws of material nature. A living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this and he demands it. One has to understand the central point of Bhagavad Gita. So it goes on a little bit, but that's basically what I was wanting to clarify from this, is that this is the real goal of life. To get free from this trying to satisfy our own personal senses and thinking that that'll make us happy, but we find out through our own experimenting in this process of trying to be happy through satisfying the body and making it comfortable, that we never become really comfortable. We never become truly happy. Just temporarily we become happy for a short time, and then we become miserable again. And we always oscillate between the dualities of happiness and distress, pleasure and pain, and so forth. So we find out that we never actually become truly happy. But here, the real goal of life is presented as to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So instead of our own personal sense gratification, to try to gratify the senses of the Lord. And that's said to be the central aim of the Bhagavad Gita. And that's the real goal of life, as presented in all the Vedas, is to try to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So the whole Bhagavad Gita, that's the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita, that instead of trying to satisfy our own senses, we should try to detach from that, develop detachment from satisfying our own senses, which is what the people that are following Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga are trying to do, become detached from sense gratification, and replace that with trying to satisfy the senses of the Lord. We want to become attached to that, attached to the Lord and a loving relationship with the Lord, and trying to please the Lord through rendering different services. And through following that, we can practically realize that we become fully peaceful and fully happy and fully satisfied. Whereas through material sense gratification, we always end up being frustrated and depressed and unhappy. And that's why do people take to that Sankhya Yoga process and becoming detached from the material world? Why would they want to become detached from the material world? What do you think, Bob? Why would someone want to try to...
Well, you're constantly in angst, aren't you? You're just chasing your tail in the material world. You know, there doesn't seem to be any real end result. Whereas I feel as though I'm achieving something in the spiritual world.
Yes. So that's what happens. Why does someone take to Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga? Or even Bhakti Yoga, any kind of yoga? Because they've become frustrated in material life. They've become materially exhausted. They've tried to be happy in various ways. If I get this money, I'll be happy. If I get this house, I'll be happy. If I get a raise, if I get this job, if I pass the exams, if I get this girlfriend, if I go on this holiday. You know, we have so many ideas how that we're going to become happy in the material world, but they all end up the same way, just more and more frustration and disappointment, and we don't get what we want. And then eventually people turn to one of these processes, either trying to become detached from the material world because they're realizing it's not good. This is making me suffer. This running after, as we say, sex, drugs, rock and roll, eat, drink and be merry, is just making me more and more unhappy. So if they have a brain, they'll try to detach themselves from that, from their sources or causes of misery. So that's just a sane thing to do. We want to let go of something that's causing us to suffer. And in Bhakti Yoga also, why do we take to the service of the Lord? Because we've tried to serve ourselves and everyone else, and it hasn't worked. So let's try serving Krishna. And then we find out by doing that, then we become truly happy and satisfied. And why is it that we should serve Krishna? People will naturally say, why do I have to serve Krishna? So it was mentioned there, we just read it in that end of the preface. So why is it natural? Why is it a very natural process to serve Krishna?
Because we're a spirit soul.
We're a spirit soul, and the spirit soul is, what's the spirit soul's relationship with Krishna?
I don't know how to put it in words. Is it because the spark of Krishna is inside us?
Yeah, he's definitely inside of us, and we're also inside of him. That's the inconceivable thing, that everything is within the Supreme, and the Supreme is within everything. So that's one of the inconceivable opulences of the Lord, that he is so great that everything is within him, and he is so small that he is within everything at the same time, simultaneously. But especially it's natural that we should serve the Supreme because we're part of the Supreme. We're part and parcel. Always remember that term, part and parcel. So we're a tiny part of the Supreme, but we're also intimately related. That's why it's called parcel, because parcel means together, not separated part. We're not a separated part. God is over there and we're over here. It's completely separated part. No, but we're intimately related. So therefore parcel, part and parcel. It's a beautiful term Prabhupada uses to help us understand our relationship with the Supreme, that we're part and parcel of the Supreme. And therefore it's natural for us to serve the Supreme because we're part. Because the natural function of the part is to serve the whole. We've talked about many times, just like it's very natural for the hand to serve the body. Because the hand is part of the body, and the function, the purpose, the goal of the hand is to satisfy the body, please the body by putting food in the mouth or protecting the body, isn't it? The hands protect the body, and the hands feed the body. So the purpose of the hand is to serve the body. Like if I get an itch on my head, I use my hand to scratch it, to give some relief or pleasure to the whole body. So that's natural. That's not artificial. That's very natural. So therefore, understanding that we're part of the Supreme, part of Krishna, that's very natural. And Krishna is the whole, is the absolute truth. As we've been reading in the Ishopanishad on Saturdays, that Krishna is Purnam. Purnam means the complete whole. He is the Purnam, complete whole. And we're part of that complete whole. So it's very natural for us to render service to the complete whole. And in that Jnana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga path, they're realizing that material life and trying to satisfy the body and the senses just leads to suffering. So they know that's not where it's at. That can't be the goal of life. So they're trying to find out what is the real goal of life, who we really are. And they haven't quite found it yet, but they're trying, and that's glorious. The fact that they're trying to go beyond this superficial goal of just trying to enjoy the body, this temporary body, which ends up growing old, getting sick and dying, which is so ephemeral, they call it. It's just so temporary and superficial. That's glorious, that they're intelligent people, that they're realizing there must be something more to this whole material world, this universe, than just, eat, drink, and be merry and so forth. So that's a great credit, that they're trying to detach themselves from these temporary pleasures and trying to look for some more longer term pleasure. As we talked about before, there's two approaches, either Shreyas or Prayas. There's long-term happiness, which is Shreyas, and short-term happiness, Prayas. So anything to do with the body is just Prayas. It's just some temporary happiness. But someone that has some intellect, some good brain substance, will naturally think, I'm not happy just with some short-time happiness. I want long-term happiness. I want permanent happiness. So that's what the Jnani, the Sankhya Yoga person, is after, a more longer-time happiness. Anyone has anything to say about these things?
Abhay, can you just repeat what the long-term happiness is called?
That's Sreyasa. Shreyasa.
Shreyasa. And what was the short time?
It's the same except P instead of an S. Instead of the S, it's got P.
P,
Prayas. Right. Prayas means short term happiness and long-term happiness. So sometimes people think, you Hare Krishnas, you're against happiness and you're always talking about detachment and everything like that. But actually, that's our goal, is happiness. But we want long-time happiness. We don't want just short-time happiness. We're not against sense gratification. But what we're against is this material sense gratification, because it's so temporary. We want the spiritual sense gratification, which is unlimited, which gets better and better. Isn't that exciting? If we can have a happiness that gets better and better and better, that's unending, that has no end. See, everything in the material world has a beginning and an end. That's the default setting of the material world. Everything, doesn't matter where you go, it has a beginning. It's called Adi Antavanta. Adi means beginning and Anta means end. So that's the bummer of the material world. Even you might be Bill Gates and you have a great family and a great house and everything, but it has a beginning and an end. So, but only in the spiritual existence and Brahman, the nature of Brahman existence, spiritual existence, is there's no beginning and no end, and it's unlimited, and the constitutional position in that Brahman is just happiness. There's only one kind of experience there. It's just full happiness, complete happiness. So that should be exciting to some introspective person, someone with some, brain substance, which a human being is supposed to have some of that brain substance. Of course, unfortunately, modern day society is very good at getting rid of whatever little brain substance we have, unfortunately, by so many, drugs and different things like that, and the TV and the drugs and everything else like that, and is just ruining whatever little brain substance we have. Computer games and so forth is very dulling our brain, unfortunately. But for those that do have some brain, this should be very exciting. There is it is possible. We should at least consider, is it possible that there is a happiness that is unlimited? we should at least try for that. Yeah. There's no loss, because we've already tried the materialistic path and we know where that ends up. So there's no loss. And if we are successful, then we've hit the jackpot. Completely hit the jackpot. And even a little progress on the spiritual path, and you immediately start to experience more happiness, even in this life. It's not that you have to wait till the body dies before you experience that Brahman happiness. You can even, that's the beauty of these yoga processes. If you follow the process properly, you can experience results immediately. I'm sure, that all of us, Bob, Josh, myself, anyone that sincerely followed a genuine yoga process, experiences really good results, isn't it?
Yes.
The fear starts to reduce, the anxiety starts to reduce, satisfaction starts to increase, peacefulness starts to increase, happiness increases, more happiness, less, even when you're put into stressful situations, but you don't get so disturbed by them. And these are all really good results, isn't it? And that encourages us to go further. The problem if someone just sticks to the process of detachment from the material world is that that's not natural for the soul just to be detached from everything. See, the nature of the soul, because we're a spiritual personality that normally has loving relationships. So the real nature of the soul is to be having very positive spiritual relationships, and that's bringing us a lot of happiness from those relationships. So just cutting off from material relationships, which does lead to suffering, but not replacing it with spiritual relationships, can be very dry. So the best thing is very quickly, as soon as we are becoming detached from the material world, we want to fill that void, because you've given up something, that material enjoyment. You want to fill that void up with the spiritual enjoyment as quickly as possible. Otherwise, what may happen? If you try to give up materialistic life and you don't find something better to replace it with, what's the danger?
God, you'd be terribly upset. You'd have to wonder if life's worth continuing in the material world.
Yes. Yeah. And if you give up some inferior enjoyment, like materialistic enjoyment is definitely inferior because it's temporary, and you give that up, but you don't find a superior enjoyment, which is on the spiritual plane, then there is also a danger that you go back to it, that you go back to the materialistic life. And that's what happens to many aspiring transcendentalists.
They bloop.
Yeah, very good. Very brilliant term you used to explain. They fall down. Yeah, they bloop. They fall down. Do you know where that word comes from, Bob? Do you remember?
I think you told me it's like a drop of water burn.
Like a stone in the water.
Sorry?
Yeah.
A stone.
If you drop like a stone in the water,
yeah,
the sound it makes is bloop when it falls
yeah.
down. So, yeah, there is a danger if you don't find some higher enjoyment that you may go back to the lower enjoyment, which is unfortunate. But I mean, the very fact that they're trying is good. They're trying to get out of the material world. They're trying to find, is there something better than materialistic life? So that's great credit. Like I said, that's glorious. That's a glorious endeavor. But very quickly, we want to try to fill the gap. If you give up materialistic pursuits, you want to try to fill that up with spiritual pursuits as soon as you can. Because the nature of the soul is ananda maya vyasat. Ananda maya vyasat. Ananda means bliss. So we're bliss seekers. You could say we're bliss seekers. Every soul is a pleasure seeker, a bliss seeker. And that's not wrong. That's not wrong. But the only thing wrong, and what the scriptures say is wrong, is that we're looking for the happiness, the bliss, the pleasure in the material world. And that is given the analogy of looking for water in a desert. Water exists, yes, but not in the desert. You're looking in the wrong place, mate. If you think you're going to find water in the desert, good luck, because you're looking in the wrong place. When you think you see water in the desert, what's that called?
Mirage.
That's called a mirage. So that's the maya. That's the illusion. So maya, or illusion, that illusory energy of Krishna, is making us think that we can find lasting happiness in the material world. That's maya. That's the mirage. That we're thinking we can find permanent happiness in the material world. We live our life like we're never going to die. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? We all the way people live their lives is like they're never going to die, and they don't prepare anything for death. You know, most people, you know, we just live every day trying to enjoy, smoke another cigarette, another, you know, more food, everything. We just trying to enjoy, and we never see it's coming to an end. So that's the mirage. We keep running after the mirage. But it's not wrong to look for water, but you got to look for it in the right place. So it's not wrong to look for happiness, but you got to look for it in the right place, and that's in the Brahman, the spiritual existence. That's where the real happiness is. That's where the ultimate water is for the soul. The nourishment for the soul is there. And so the Sankhya Yoga follower, or the Jnana Yogi, is trying to find out where is that water, and they've realized it's not here in the material world. They're not sure where it is, but they're trying to find it. They're trying to detach themselves from the material world and trying to elevate themselves and understanding about who they are and where they came from and where the real happiness is. But Bhakti Yoga is a lot easier. Everything is presented immediately right in the beginning. It's immediately given in the beginning about who we are. That's given right in day one. I remember right the day one when I came to a Hare Krishna center, it was given to me who I am and what my relationship is with this world and what is the goal of life and what is the process to achieve the goal. So in Sanskrit, those three different topics is called Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana. Sambandha, and this is basically all of the Vedas. The Vedas are so vast, but basically the Vedas is all about covering these three different subjects. These are the three most important subjects, and everything is fitting within these three subjects, which Sambandha means relationship, means who I am and who the Supreme is and what is my relationship with the Supreme. And then, and everything else in the world too. What is my relationship with everything else in the world? And then Abhidaya. Abhidaya means process, a process that we follow to achieve the Prayojana. Prayojana means the goal. What is the goal? Our aim, our goal. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? What's your goal? What's your purpose? What's your aim? So that's the Prayojana. And the Abhidaya is the process. How do you achieve that goal? how do you make steps towards that goal, achieving that purpose, that aim? That's the abhidaya. And before any of that's going to become clear, what's the goal? First of all, you have to understand what's the sambandha, what's the relationship, who you are. As long as we think falsely that we're the body, we're never going to make the goal to get out of the material world. We're never going to make the goal to go to the spiritual world, to develop a loving relationship with the Supreme, because we have a false idea of sambandha. Our idea of relationships is all wrong. We think we're the body, and this is my family and my children and my parents and my country and everything like that. So our sambandhas all skew with. It's all topsy-turvy. It's all we're in a mirage in terms of our relationships. So therefore the goal's wrong. If you got your understanding of self-identity wrong, and then your goal's also going to be wrong. If the first calculation's wrong, 1 + 3, then times that by 2, divide that by 5, add 100. It's just going to get more and more wrong. If your first calculation's wrong. So if we start off thinking we're the body, then you're never going to get anything right after that. The first thing is to understand, like it's mentioned, self-realization, to realize that I am not the body, I'm the spirit soul. And I have a relationship, I'm part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, and therefore my goal is to reconnect with the Supreme Soul, become a loving servant of the Supreme, and there's a whole process how to do that. So this is the whole picture. And the Vedas gives us complete knowledge about these 3 different areas of sambandha, abhidaya, and prayojana, and then we can make solid progress. And I was given all that knowledge over like the first day. I spent my whole life trying to figure out something, and I wasn't getting very far, just speculating. I remember my dad and I, we used to spend hours every evening speculating about what's the point of it all, what's the purpose of it all, why is it all like this, why is there all this suffering, and what's the solutions, and so many things. And we go around and round in circles. I'm not sure if you've all had that experience of going around in circles, but that's what often can happen through just our own endeavors and speculating, that we just go around and round in circles, and it's very frustrating. But then coming to meet some spiritual teachers, some gurus that have complete knowledge from the Vedas, and all this is, all the real facts is immediately given to us, which was such a relief. I remember feeling so much relief. I don't have to speculate anymore. Don't have to speculate anymore. How do we know if we're a speculator? If you have a statement which has in it, I think, maybe, could be, then definitely you're on the path of speculation. You'll notice when the guru talks, he never says I think. He never says maybe, could be. There's none of that there, because it's not about speculation. It's about getting the perfect knowledge from the source. There's no ifs or maybes or could be's, or no thinking required there. Okay, so I think that's covered the topic as far as my capacity goes. Anyone want to say anything? Anyone else?
Good this end.
All good. Hey, Josh, you've arrived at your destination.
Yeah.
You've achieved your goal. Isn't it like before you get anywhere, you have to decide where you want to end up, isn't it? So
Yep.
in material life, that's a big problem. People don't know where they're going. So it's very frustrating. You've got to decide your destination before you start your journey. But I remember, I mean, for the first 20 years of my life, I didn't have a clue where I was going. You see, that's such a big problem in modern day society. I'm sure that's a big thing why there's so much suicide and depression and so much in society, because people don't know where they're going. They don't have any concept of a real destination, a real goal. And it's so frustrating and going around in circles, you know.
Well, it's tricky because the material goals are very easy to explain. I want $1 million or I want a Mercedes Benz. But the spiritual goals, it's not quite so easy to explain with words. The sense of it, so, it can be hard to remember. Have a strategy to help you remember and recall, and to help you become more clear. Like your goal is some kind of process, one process for everyone, but it looks different for everyone. This is a Upanishad reading group on Thursdays.
Yeah, it was mainly started up because there's some people were saying that they're not free on Thursdays, so we thought we'd do something on the weekend for them. And then, well, we didn't really want to start over with the Bhagavad Gita again, so we thought we'd try a different book. So we just picked Upanishad. We could have picked any other book, but we just decided to pick. It's a small book.
What time is it on?
What's that?
What time? What time is it on?
It's a bit later. It's on at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. your time.
Right.
On Saturday. Yeah, anytime you're free that time, you're welcome to join in.
I do a philosophy talk at 4 o'clock on Saturday.
Oh, great.
It usually goes for a bit longer than 1 hour. So.
Yeah, that's all right. That's okay. No problem. No problem. Is that at a yoga studio, or you're doing that remotely?
Well, it's
we're
doing it. No, it's in real life. We're doing it at the park, the local park, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I better go. My student has just arrived.
Yes. Okay, lovely to see you.
See you,
Take
Josh.
care. Thanks, Josh.
I might see you tomorrow, Saturday.
Okay.
All right. See you then.
See you, mate.
Yes.
And how have you been, Bob?
Oh, I'm well, thank you.